I was confused.
That's fine.
You told me that you wanted...
Kenny, you okay? No, I was the top. Oh, Kenny.
The situation between Jana and Kenny and Whitney and Lochan brings up a very important topic, and I feel like this is a conversation that we need to be having way more within our communities, and that is internalized racism among people of color.
We have an issue in the DR which is so crazy, and it has to do with our colorism, and it's crazy. You're like, man, listen, we're not back in the Taino time. This is like the real deal here,
and it's very prevalent still. Like it's still, I see it on my Facebook with my family members. Sometimes I'm like, are we still stuck on this?
No, it's crazy. Well, if you see primetime TV in the DR, you don't see Dominicano Moreno in primetime TV. You don't. All you see is
Big Papi's not on TV.
Big Papi's not on TV, not in the DR.
Unless it's Big Papi.
Yeah, but exactly, because Big Papi became Big Papi. But if Big Papi was just un tigre de Santiago, juega pelota. Óyeme, no, ni caso le hacen. Pero all of a sudden, because he became Big Papi, like, yo, that's Big Papi.
We don't care the color of his skin.
I think there's always kind of been this idea that we're all in this together as people of color, and I like to think for the most part that we are, but we simply cannot ignore the fact that not everyone is an ally. Now, I wanted to look specifically at these two situations because I feel like there's somewhat of a cautionary tale, because a lot of us feel as though as long as somebody is not your typical white person, that they carry similar morals and values to you, or that they're sensitive to the struggles of Black people. A lot of us ignore the fact that non-Black people of color and even Black people can internalize a lot of racist and colorist ideals. Sometimes it's instilled in their family for generations. Let's first talk about Kenny. Kenny is Dominican, and I want to preface this by saying that this is in no way a generalization, and this does not apply to all Dominicans, and it also doesn't apply to only Dominicans, but I don't want to get ahead of myself here. Alright, now, shall we? So due to the history of colonialism and slavery in Haiti and the Dominican Republic, racism and colorism are deeply ingrained in Dominican culture. This is in part due to the Dominican leaders perpetuating harmful stereotypes about Haitians who are predominantly Black, post-Haitian rule. Now, I've actually spent a lot of time working with Hispanic people, and I did ask a lot of questions about their culture from time to time, especially when racially charged things would happen. And when I would mention the level of anti-Blackness I would sometimes experience to a Dominican coworker who shared many features with me, I could see the confusion in her eyes, as if to say, why do you think you and me are the same? And that's when I realized that many Dominican people who appear Black or Black adjacent do not want to be considered as such.
As the Herald person in the Caribbean and in Latin America, you spent a lot of time in communities where Blacks are a majority. And yet you wrote in your June 16th story that being Black is a source of shame for many people. Talk about that.
I would say it's a complete denial. I would say that the majority of the Black people, particularly in the Dominican Republic, don't consider themselves Black. And I'm talking not people who look Hispanic but could be considered Black. I'm saying people who in the United States would be an African American like anyone else. They just don't see that in themselves.
And why not?
The Dominican Republic is the only country in Latin America that got its freedom not from Spain, but from Haiti, from a Black country. In the 1800s, Haiti gets independence, and then a few years later, it takes over the entire island of Hispaniola. So for 22 years, the Dominicans were under the rule of the Haitians. And for many years after that, even after they were freed, you had presidents in the Dominican Republic who really instigated a sense that anything Haitian was bad, anything Black was bad, so that when you have an island now of, I don't know, something like 10 million people who believe that Blackness and Haitianness is bad, it's not even their own fault, frankly. It's a historic learned behavior.
So how does this play out? How does this whole color caste hierarchy play out?
What's really interesting, what you see in the Dominican Republic, for one thing, what fascinated me, first of all, I should say that I'm not Black. If you meet Black people who will talk bad about black people. And you're scratching your head thinking, wait a second, you look pretty black to me. And what you hear over and over again from the Dominicans is that they didn't find out that they were black until they went to the United States.
Well, what do you mean by they talk bad about black people? They say, what do they say, that those blacks this or those blacks that?
Exactly.
Or what?
Exactly. Like, oh, look at those blacks, or, oh, God, could you believe she married a guy that dark? Or, I bet he's Haitian. There's a real pressure on women to marry guys who are lighter so that they can have children, or even men, really, to have children who are lighter than them and not have children who are darker.
So yes, deeply rooted in the culture. That was from 2007, and I'm telling you, many people still think like this. Many people are actively trying to lighten up their family trees, and they're telling their sons and daughters to improve the race by marrying someone at the very least lighter than them. And I'm not saying that this is the case with Kenny and his family. I literally don't know them. I can't say that Kenny specifically got this bias from his family because, like I said, I don't know them, and he's grown enough to form his own opinions at this point. He also could have gotten it from other interactions within the culture. I'm just saying that this situation with him being colorist isn't that alarming to me, and it's an opportunity for us to go ahead and revisit history and not be so naive when dating as people of color who care about that kind of stuff. Like, we have to take the time to realize that vetting is still very necessary even when you're dating a person of color. Internalized racism is a real thing. And to me, this is really sad to see as well because, like I said, not all Dominicans operate with this mindset, and stuff like this leads to people generalizing them as well. And Kenny wasn't the only Dominican person being anti-black. We saw those tweets from Amaya. We saw those, I think, Facebook posts from Amaya resurface of her having some very insane takes and basically glorifying how light her skin is compared to other people. Now, let's talk about the situation with Whitney and Lochan.
Let's talk about colorism in the Indian community. If you don't know, colorism is the idea that lighter or fair skin is more beautiful than dark skin. I know that this issue is not exclusive to India, and it's also prevalent in other Black, Hispanic, and South Asian communities, but I'm going to speak towards my experience as a Tamil dark skin girl. I say dark skin in quotes because I know there's a lot of women who are darker than me, but my entire life I feel like I've been considered dark because my sister and my dad are just so fair. And in India, having a fair skinned daughter was like winning the lottery. I remember all my relatives would always comment on how beautiful and light my sister was. And it's so interesting looking back at these pictures because I don't even think our skin tones were that different. But regardless, I spent my entire life wanting to be lighter. I started using Fair & Lovely when I was like 6 or 7 years old. My mom was always reminding me to stay out of the sun. And it wasn't just my mom, it was the entire community. I don't blame anyone for this. It was just a culture that they grew up in. Like in India, having dark skin is literally a liability. Dark skinned people are assumed to be poor, lower class. And a lot of families, when they're looking for a bride, their number one requirement is that the woman has fair skin. And no one had to say any of this to me. It was what I saw. Like Bollywood movies would only cast very fair-skinned women to the point where a lot of their actors, like Amy Jackson, weren't even Indian. Especially in like Tamil movies where Tamil women tend to be a little bit darker. They literally will cast actresses that don't even speak the language and just dub it over. Women like Deepika Padukone and Priyanka Chopra are kind of the darkest that Bollywood will go. And even so, these dusky or dark-skinned actresses tend to get lighter and lighter as their career progresses. It's not just a lack of representation, it's how they literally show dark-skinned women as ugly and unattractive.
Sudha, ye tere chehre ko kya hua?
It's not just fairness creams though. Like I found this one, which is a light bulb commercial.
मेरी त्वचा instant fairness चाहिए? तो ये लो.
सिपाहिए बस 1 सेकंड में उजला गोरा रंग.
Because when Lochan came to defend himself, he mentioned his Indian heritage, as if to say that there is no way he could be racist. And I feel like a lot of people share these sentiments that Indian people experience racism as well and therefore must be an ally to all people of color. In other words, Whitney is in good hands. But this would be ignoring a whole part of history that has influenced a caste system in which people are placed in a hierarchy based off of the color of their skin. Colorism in India originally started as a relatively loose hierarchy expressed as class, varna, and caste, jati, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, but became more rigid over time. The caste stratification rested upon four main pillars, which developed into various subcastes. Brahmanas were put at the top of the ladder. Its leaders were intellectuals who worked as scholars, teachers, and priests. Kshatriyas performed military tasks. Vaisyas were farmers and merchants. Lastly, Sudras were placed on the lowest rank and subservient to the other castes. Since Sudras had to carry out tasks that involved outdoor labor, their skin tones were usually darker than those of Brahmanas. Nevertheless, darker-skinned individuals could be members of the higher caste as well, and several Hindu deities are depicted in Rigveda, a collection of sacred Hindu texts, with dark complexions. This example goes to show that Hinduism alone did not present color as a source of stigma. Castes had previously existed as a structure that shaped the social structure regardless of racial markers. The caste stratification was rather thought of as a way to group different occupations together, albeit with different measures of social status accorded to each group. In India of the 21st century, skin complexion constitutes a perpetual marker that allocates career opportunities, societal resources, and has exigent complications on matrimonial decisions. In a society that greatly relies on arranged marriages, skin tone is positioned within conceptions of caste. For the parents, who are the ones arranging the marriage, a suitable match is assessed not only based on their educational background, economical attainment, and caste affiliation, but also on the tone of their complexion. This takes place irrespective of gender. Indian matrimonial advertisements, both in papers or on websites that function like dating platforms, typically assign prominence to people with fair skin. Moreover, by those upholding the caste scheme, crossing social barriers is viewed as an offense to the stratification. Even in post-colonial India, untouchables, known as Dalits, may evoke aggression from orthodox Brahmanas for breaches with the caste regime. Untouchable men, women, and children face the risk of severe punishments, including hanging in the name of honor killings. In 2020, Indian newspaper headlines spoke of a mother who killed her 19-year-old daughter for wanting to marry a Dalit. Today's India continues to witness caste-related violence. While racism, religious fundamentalism, and sexism have been intellectually and politically challenged at international forums, the practice of the caste hierarchy, the most brutal modes of hierarchical social organization, managed to elude similar scrutiny. And this article is very interesting because it also goes on to talk about, the state of Bollywood and just the overall climate when it comes to colorism. So yes, we see racism declining, but we are failing to have enough conversations about what takes place in our communities as people of color. And again, I'm not generalizing Lochan's family or accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying that when we see cases like this, I don't think we should be so shocked and surprised and be like, oh, but they're also a person of color. Why are they doing this? We have to realize what's going on within our communities. I also wanted to briefly touch on this season of Love Island and the coupling of Nick and Alondria, because I've seen a lot of people come out to sort of warn Alondria about being with a white man as a black woman, don't get with the colonizer. And I agree that people should take caution. Honestly, I've already said this, but everybody should be cautious when they're dating. Everybody should be vetting the people that they decide to spend time with. But I just didn't see people giving all of this energy to Jana and Kenny, or to Whitney and Lochan either, for that matter. And I think it goes back to this assumption that people of color are all allies. And I have to say, during this discourse, a lot of people made valid points about the differences between white male and black female dynamics in romantic relationships versus POC males and black women dynamics in romantic relationships. And a key thing to note is that white men have a stable relationship with their identity, dare I say, a more stable relationship with their identity than any other race group. And not just the identity itself, but the inherent value that comes with that identity, the inherent value that identity, the fact that they're a white man, affords them. In other words, they're not in competition with us. They haven't been fed this idea that they have to compete for their place or that they have to do anything extra in order to be perceived as valuable in this world. As a white person, as a white man for that matter, they've known from birth that their value is intrinsic, which is the case for all of us, but we're not taught that. Have we all been brought up that way though? Have we experienced the world through that lens though, like a white man has? To be honest, not even white women have experienced the world through that lens where it's like, literally like, you are just valuable, period. You don't have to do anything extra. And I think that that plays a role in the way that men and women interact in interracial relationships. So I honestly get where people are coming from when they say that Alondria didn't need those warnings as much as Whitney did. I get it when people encourage women to have discernment when dating men of color as women of color. And y'all, this applies vice versa as well, so don't take this as me saying it's only men of color. Please don't be mad at me because I love Janae down and she didn't deserve any of what happened to her. But I think a part of the reason Janae was accepting of certain behavior might have to do with her own grapple with racism, with internalized racism. Like, perhaps because of this man's skin tone, she let more slide than she typically would have. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I mean, even with the text between her sister and Lochan, it seems as though her sister has put more trust in Lochan than she really needs to. Why does he not have to explain himself when your sister is involved? Like, why do you not want an explanation from him? What is that all about? And again, Whitney isn't innocent here either, and her sister may have never even heard some of those stories that she revealed when she was talking about what happened between her and Lochan. Like, about his mom allegedly telling her when the lights went out, oh, where's Whitney, and making those like very colorist, weird ass jokes. So perhaps it's a possibility that Whitney was holding on to a lot of these things because she wanted to protect him in the relationship, and this is really no shade to Whitney at all. When I was in high school, I started dating this boy, and I went on his computer one day and saw a lot of racist things. I saw a lot of racist things on there toward black people, brown people, Asian people, you name it. Everybody was catching it, right? And I didn't tell anyone until like near the end of our relationship. But like low-key, I had no excuse because this was a see-through white man, and I was just allowing myself to be colonized. Like, I'm joking. But I like low-key give Janae the benefit of the doubt because it's confusing when it's another person of color, when it's somebody with a black or brown mom, because you just expect them to understand your struggle, and you're like, oh, like, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, no way they're playing in my face like this. I get where she's coming from. Also, let's talk about the fact that misogynoir and internalized racism is deeply embedded within the black community. Like, we're not innocent. And when it comes to colorism, there are people in our community who actively go for lighter skinned people because they want their children to be lighter than them. And I just don't feel responsible if I don't acknowledge our role as black people in all of this. And I've seen the discussion take place surrounding black men, but some of us participate in colorism too as black women. And I think it's okay to unpack this. And I think a lot of times in some of these relationship dynamics where we end up dealing with these men of color, or even when you look at the Chris Brown situation, like, do we see how much we let slide with y'all let slide with Chris Brown? And sometimes I feel like if it were somebody of darker complexion, if it was somebody that you guys didn't deem to be attractive, would y'all be okay with, like, would y'all even be like still going to his concert? I think there is internalized racism in the black community, and it contributes to a lot of these romantic dynamics, and sadly we've seen it happen a few times in just one dating show in such a short space of time. It's really sad to see. But I really want to know what you guys think about all this. Please leave me a comment down below. If you like this video, leave me a thumbs up, subscribe if you feel like it, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.